resonates with you. This is Kuya Jaycon.
And Angelica.
And Chloe. Hello, everyone.
Hello, guys. I
We
missed
are.
you. Mm-mm.
You're so everything.
We miss you too, Jacob. We miss you too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
So
been a
I
while.
know.
it has been a while. So we are actually going to continue our season, the Balance Blueprint Part 1.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to focus on topics that involve balancing your personal, social, and academic life. Because balance is a practice that is essential to develop, especially at a young age. Now, this topic is very timely, and it's a topic that I think our entire team really resonates with, and especially all of us here, especially since all of us host here right now are students. So our episode today is titled From Last Minute Cramming to Consistency. Because especially in our studies, last minute cramming, while it is an unhealthy habit, is something that we sometimes might face because we tend to procrastinate tasks until the very last second. So how do we manage this? That's what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly. But of course, we want our podcast family to also join in on this conversation. So let's segue onto our podcast episode question for today. And as always, all of our lovely, lovely live viewers, please feel free to leave your answer in the comment section below in the live chat, and we'll make sure to shout you out. And for those of you who will be viewing our episode right after it has aired, please feel free to share your response to our question at podcast@incradio.net. So without further ado, our podcast episode question for today is: what are some methods we can apply to avoid procrastinating but instead stay consistent?
I love that. Now, before we head off to our main discussion, of course, we would love to extend our greetings and special thanks to our Angela Eranio V. Manalo, our CEBSI president and CEO. And of course, most of all, we'd love to give our thanks to our dearest executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. We love you so much,
I
Bob.
don't know if my heart's working today. It's probably not. Oh, it is!
Oh, there is a heart. I didn't even know there was a heart here.
Let's go on to our main discussion. So, our first question for today: what does consistency mean to you, and how is this different from last minute cramming? So, it's about defining our actual discussion topics for today.
Mm-hmm. I think something that I always associate consistency with, it's the habit of showing up regularly and also making steady progress over time. Something that you're doing um, regularly all the time. It's not something that you do all at once. It's something more like you're building it up. And it's different from last minute cramming because let's just say when I associate this with studying, I feel like last minute cramming, you have this like sudden burst of energy or effort because of something that might be coming up, or you're cramming all of this information into your head. And I think that, especially as a student, it's not something that will help you to really learn the information. It's more like you're cramming all this information just for the sake of, let's just say, maybe an upcoming exam or whatnot.
How about you, Jacob?
Mine would be, well, I could say that I'm consistent with last minute cramming.
That's not a good. That's not a good thing.
Mali
I think
ba?
some people
Mali,
are
mali, mali, mali.
as well.
You know, isa din yan sa ano, no? I battle with that every day. You know,
Yeah,
to
we
try my
know.
best. I battle with it every day, trying to be
Sorry.
consistent, especially with my the degree that I'm pursuing now. Kasi like ang hirap kapag you're not on track with your readings. If I'm not on track with my readings, or kaya if I miss a certain article that I did not memorize, that dapat by this day memorize ko na to, you know, and in my schedule right now, sobrang time blocked ng schedule ko. As in, it's really time blocked, and whenever I miss something, parang dinadama ko siya, like I could feel it, I could feel the burden of it, like for a week dala ko siya. So that's why it's important for me to be consistent with being on time with everything.
That's the thing with consistency, is that, like what Angelica said, it's very like you build it up. It's something that you do every day. Well, not necessarily. Yeah. It's something that you regularly do. It's a habit that you've made. So what do I mean by it's not like an everyday thing? I don't know, things that you can do maybe once a week, every single week, you do it without fail. That's consistency. For example, you go to the gym every Monday. Every Monday, you always set time aside to go to the gym so that you're consistent. Whether it's 30 minutes, half an hour, or like whether it's like 15 minutes or you're there for an hour, that's fine. But as long as it's being consistent, different from last minute cramming, which is all very impulsive. So things like what Jacon was saying, that everything you kind of make excuses to procrastinate things to the very last minute. So you're like, okay, well, I'll just get that done by Friday. And then when Friday comes around, you find that you've also procrastinated things on the Wednesday and the Tuesday.
Thursday and everything.
You've all said like, okay, well, I'm going to do everything by Friday. Now you have 7 things to do on the Friday. You know, it's very, there are some things that we have to cram for. I think that's also like it's inevitable. We can't always prepare
Right.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Which can be frustrating for us because we are control freaks that love to be organized.
Yeah.
But I guess last minute cramming's more things that we don't plan on doing and things that we've procrastinated to do. What are some common triggers for procrastination, and how can we identify them early so we can address them? Common triggers for procrastination.
I think my trigger is actually kind of different from other people's. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist.
Really?
Talaga? Grabe. Bagong impormasyon yun sa
Like
akin.
my mind's just blown. So I never knew that.
But here's the problem, right? So similar to Jacon, I time block as well. So, you know, I schedule out my day. But the problem is that because I'm such a perfectionist, it will take me longer to do certain tasks. But then the problem with that is that if I can't reserve that specific amount of time to do it, then I just won't do it. So let's just say in my head, I have an assignment. Let's just say I have a coding assignment, and I think in my head, okay, this is going to take me like 3 hours to finish this one homework assignment. If I never find those exact 3 hours within that day or that week, then I simply never get to it, because I think that, okay, like I don't like starting things and then not finishing them, because we're so busy, we don't know when we're going to be able to go back to something. And so that time blocking thing, and then mixed with that perfectionism issue that I have, it prevents me from actually getting things started.
That's interesting. That's interesting that like the actual thing with you is that it's hard for you to start, because once you start something, you actually have to finish it. And if
and it has to be like good quality. And if I feel like I don't have enough time to make it good quality, then I won't start it at all.
That's really interesting. Because I knew that about you, but I didn't know that about you.
It's pretty similar with mine, yung kay Ate Angelica, kasi she talks about perfection, di ba? It is a paralysis. Kaya talagang nakahinder siya ng progress, especially when time blocking. Di ba? Kasi for example, you're supposed to just do this for an hour, pero like, pangit, or like, I'm not satisfied, so like, you're gonna extend, so procrastinate. Mine is like, I'm so scared. I'm so scared to even begin with it. Like when I see that the task is like, oh, parang kailangan ko mag-isip ng so much, or parang this will take such a huge amount of energy from me, parang like natitrigger yung katamaran ko. Hindi procrastination, katamaran. Nagawin siya. And that is such a, parang self-sabotage, talaga siya, quality. And I don't wanna feel that anymore. Kaya nakakatakot na when I say na, okay, today is gonna be a better day. I'm no longer gonna procrastinate. I'm a better human person living in this society. Parang ganon. Tapos biglang nakita ko yung task na, mag-cellphone na lang muna ako, magbasa muna ako.
You
Pwede
just
ba
go
yun?
back. You're like, actually, I changed my mind. Actually, today's not going to be a good day.
Parang stressful. At the same time, it turns, nagiging frustrating na siya. Kasi parang, why am I like this? I was meant for better things. Parang
your thought process needs to be studied. Like that's clinical at this point.
No, Jacob just gets overwhelmed. He gets overwhelmed, and then he'll get distracted. Yun. That's what it is.
My common trigger is burnout, because I'm so prone to burn out with all of the things that I do, that
If you're burnt out, you just procrastinate.
Burnout for me is expressed as me just rotting in bed. So then I become not lazy that I want to be lazy. It's I just stay in bed because I have no other energy to do anything else. So I actually procrastinate not because I want to or not because I'm consciously doing it, but because I'm actually so burnt out that I'm too tired to do anything. It's a little bit different from each one of us. I identify it by just being in bed, always thinking about like, okay, I can't wait to go back to bed. And then when I go back to bed, I just end up sleeping for hours. What are some small daily habits that we can apply to shift us from last minute cramming to being more consistent? For me, I like to time block as much as I can. It gives me control over what I can or can't do. Usually my brain is a mess. So time blocking in a way will allow me to organize my thoughts into something a little bit more coherent, that's visually simple to understand, that's not overwhelming. And also journaling. Journaling is a big thing for me right now. It actually helps me a lot. That allows me to be consistent in something, so that if I'm discouraged that, I didn't study as much as I wanted to today, or I wasn't being so efficient today, at least when I journal, I'm like, okay, well, at least that's something that I'm actually actively doing every day, and that's something that I'm consistent in.
I think this is actually the first semester. This is my hardest semester, I think, material-wise. Schedule-wise, it feels lighter because I only go to class 3 days a week, but then the material is actually really heavy, which makes me actually need those 2 days or even more than that to actually prepare for my classes. This is the first semester that I've actually pushed myself to study and prep before lectures. So I think for me, a small daily habit to really shift towards being more consistent is to make sure that I have like a study or like a work routine, just having set times during the day or throughout the week where I'm specifically doing work for school and for me, actually, I separate it. So there's certain days that I dedicate specifically to doing work for church, and also days where I dedicate it to school. So time blocking, definitely. And also building a routine is also really important. And another thing is really breaking down the tasks. Whatever I need to do, slowly working on it. I'm trying to discipline myself to do that. So that way I just don't get overwhelmed. Because I also, like Jacob, like if I get overwhelmed, I might just walk away from the task and just never do it. So, yeah.
Mine was probably, just do it. Yan lang. Just, yun lang yun talaga. Parang sinasabi ko lang na, gawin mo na ngayon. May time ka. Huwag ka na parang pinapagalitan ko yung sarili ko in a way na hindi naman sobrang harsh. Na parang gina-gentle parenting ko yung self. Like, Jacob,
you can do it, sweetie.
You can do it. Just do it. Just go on with it. Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
Somehow it really helps.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it really does help. Kasi sometimes, ang dami kong
yourself.
Justification nga sa sarili ko. Ang daming reason to not do it. Like, I'm too sleepy, or like, I'm not feeling my shoes today, or parang I'm, I just don't feel it. Pero, just do it now. Why aren't you doing it now? Bakit? What's taking you so long?
One of the things that I actually I'm trying to teach myself is, how when you time block, right? You're setting, in terms of the time, you're setting it like on the exact hour, or maybe the intervals are like, okay, let's just say 3:05, 3:10, 3 whatever, 3:30, right? Those intervals that we are trying to set our tasks to be set at, right? Like to start it at that time. And then we have this habit of, okay, actually it passed 3:00. I'm going to do it 3:05, 3:10. And then you just keep going and going. And so I think that one of the things, even when it comes to time blocking, is we have to reframe our thinking. Stop thinking that you can just do things during certain set times. You can start at any time. You don't have to wait till the next 5 minutes happens or
Mm-hmm.
the next 10 minutes, because the one thing that you need to do in order to overcome procrastination is to start. So that's one thing that I'm working on.
How do you prepare mentally to overcome procrastination and cramming?
Well, I just embrace it. I'm kidding.
Yeah. I just do it.
I just do.
I'm perfect like that.
Joke lang. I know what I really consider first, the environment. Parang sobrang in denial ko before na hindi ako nakakapag-work kapag maraming tao. That's like hindi ako makapag-work na maraming tao, kailangan alone ako, ganyan. No. I can't even do stuff when I'm alone kasi like parang walang nagbabantay sa akin, parang walang sense of accountability when I'm in a certain room and I'm just alone. So instead of working alone, I drag a friend, or I set my mind na okay, punta tayo sa environment where we feel like everyone is watching us.
How I prepare mentally to overcome procrastination and cramming is actually creating my own reward system. The whole sweet treat thing, I do that often, maybe too often, but it motivates me. Like if I know I worked hard. No, it's actually not an acai bowl anymore. No, not my matcha, because I make that at home. I get coffee.
Okay.
I go out and get coffee. Or just something that I want to eat, or like ice cream. Either those two. Because the acai bowls, it was getting expensive, so I needed to like transition.
You needed to budget down.
Ay, hindi na gana to. Mahal na eh.
Yeah. Plus, I don't want my sweet treat to hurt my pockets. So then I had to get something more affordable. So it's not acai bowls now. It's like ice cream or coffee. Either one of those two. But creating the reward system for yourself, treating yourself. Okay, of course, don't go crazy with it. But doing so has honestly been really motivating, because then you feel good after being productive and not cramming. And then you're happy because you get like a little treat or reward at the end of working so hard. So that's one thing.
My way of mentally preparing myself is by talking to myself. There's a certain thing about looking a little bit crazy, but being like, hey, you got this? Just like hyping yourself up. That's what I do. I just hype myself up. I'm like, you know what? You can't mess up today. There's no way that you can. You can't, like, you're doing so well now. You can't be stagnant. Okay. Go do something, even just a little thing. So for me, that's my way of taking away the procrastination and actually putting it into an action. Resting versus procrastinating. How do we differentiate the two, and what can we do if we find ourselves procrastinating more? What's the difference between resting and procrastinating?
Resting is when you, I think all of us can answer this one, like together, because the resting is
1, 2, 3, go.
Resting
is resting is like your recharge. Okay, yes. Your resting is a necessity. It's necessary for your body, and one of the mentalities that I've had is resting is also productive, because especially for us as students, it helps us to retain information better. We need to rest. It's part of our preparation for taking in more information. So resting is essential, but procrastinating is more like when you're avoiding something. I feel like resting is part of the preparation, because it helps you to be more productive, and then procrastinating is just straight up avoiding it.
I like that. You know, I resonate with that. The avoidance.
The avoidance.
Yeah. The avoidance,
yeah. Yeah. What were you saying, Jacob?
No, I just agreed.
Well, okay, is that it? Noted.
That's it.
Acknowledged.
I agreed.
Okay, so what?
Noted with thanks.
So what do you think we can do if we notice we're procrastinating more?
I think that requires a lot of self-discipline and self-awareness, and enough humility to tell yourself, to acknowledge that you are just procrastinating and you're not just making an excuse. Because that's what differentiates resting and procrastinating for me. Procrastinating is giving yourself an excuse to not do any work, whereas resting is you're allowing yourself to rest, to not do anything because you know that this will benefit you. So having that sort of self-discipline to tell yourself, hey, you're being lazy, you're putting this off, you're sweeping this under the rug, you shouldn't do that because it's going to bite you back in the future. That I think it's definitely a mentality thing, not necessarily something like a tangible action that you can do. But yeah, just acknowledging and actually getting up and doing your work. What do you guys think?
I agree. And another thing is doing it with your friends so that way you guys could hold each other accountable is also really important. I'm actually the worst at this because my friends will call. We'll do like study calls. So that way we avoid going on our phones. That's the whole point. So that way we're not like scrolling through our phones doing random things when we're supposed to be studying. I always ruin it because I always like say something and then it sparks a conversation. All of a sudden everyone's talking. But I think that, on the days that I am more disciplined, having friends to keep you accountable and to keep you on track, fellow students, is always something that's good to have.
I could relate with this in the context of when I'm with people whom I really enjoy to be with. Tapos like, okay guys, hanggang 2:00 lang ako . That's not happening.
2:00 ng umaga.
I'll stay until 4. Yung mga ganon.
Yeah.
And sometimes I always, like, doon naman tayo sa justification na, this won't happen ever again. You won't see them after a week or you won't see them after a month. Sulitin mo na. Laging ganon yung mindset. So instead of just, I'll be with these people kasi pahinga ko sila. More like, nagiging rason na lang siya for me to not do anything. For me to just like, enjoy, and, hindi napansinin yung responsibilities na dapat hinaharap ko ngayon. Because sila yung pahinga ko and masaya ako with them.
Is that how you feel with
like
us?
That more, yeah, I know, right? I wish
No.
Kami ba yung pahinga mo?
How can we use our faith to help us, especially in times where our life seems overwhelming? Just like in Jacon's case, where he has so many pahingas.
Yeah.
That it must be overwhelming.
It really is overwhelming to have so much. I'm kidding.
Jacon, pero, what's your thoughts?
You know what? Sobrang nagpapasalamat ako with our faith as members of the Church of Christ. Kasi it always teaches us na certain values that always parang lingers, and we remember these values and teachings when we are facing challenges such as procrastination and other stuff. All of the lesson or being a prisoner of discipline manifests in everything that we do and believe inside the Church of Christ. 'Di ba? Kasi sabihin natin ang daming bagay na hindi natin ginagawa na other people outside of the church do. 'Di ba? We hold ourselves back kasi nga we know that this won't help our faith, this won't help our life. 'Di ba? And even in the smallest details such as just writing an essay or doing a homework, instead of like doing things na would make us happy, pero neglecting naman itong priority that we actually need. Yun lagi yung naaalala ko, yung faith natin. And of course, it's such a non-brainer thing to do for us before we begin to do anything, is to pray first para hindi maputol yung motivation, yung inspiration na nararamdaman natin, or eventually, receive an inertia of parang determination from God when we ask help from him.
We use our faith to help us, especially when times in our lives feels really overwhelming, in the sense that we turn to God. Prayer is something that's always really important. But just to kind of answer this, I guess, in a different perspective as well, um, it is a blessing to have so many things going on. That's how I like to think of it. Everything in our lives is a privilege. We might feel overwhelmed with school or work or the balance of everything that we're involved in. But at the end of the day, even the problems that we have, in if we reframe our thinking, it's actually a blessing. It's a blessing to be able to go to school. All of these are privileges that we have that are given to us by our Almighty God. And so we utilize our faith to be thankful to God, even in the times that we are overwhelmed, but also to turn to Him when we are in need of help.
That's really true. And just to add on top of that, I think our faith is our biggest motivator. You know, we might not have any other motivation within us, but if we remind ourselves that we still have our faith and that God is always with us, He has these promises that He's given to us, and He's more than willing to give them abundantly. Those are the kinds of reminders that we have that help us mentally, which will then help us also as we actually enact those things that we have to do, even if they do seem overwhelming.
So, for our Christian value takeaway, especially us, the youth of the Church of Christ, we are faced with the challenge of balancing many things on our priority lists: work, school, family, and most importantly, church and our faith. Many times, as we have discussed, it leads us to build unhealthy, avoidant habits such as procrastinating and last-minute cramming because it may indicate we are burning out. In these times, we always look to our faith to help us become more self-disciplined to complete the tasks we have, not only in time, but of the highest quality.
Exactly. It's also inevitable that we may feel unmotivated or discouraged because there seems to be so many things to balance that we might just want to give up completely. However, as members of the Church of Christ, we don't depend on the qualities that we have, but instead we turn to our faith and pray to God for Him to give us the qualities that we need. This allows us to fulfill our duties to Him no matter what happens in our lives.
That is exactly true. Such a beautiful conversation that we have, a moment of realization and reflection for us three and all of our viewers and listeners. And as we wrap up today's episode, we'd love to give our thanks to our lovely viewers and listeners. Of course, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in today's episode. And we hope to see you in our next episode so that we can all keep growing in our faith in one INCRadio podcast episode at a time. And as always, we'd love to hear from all of you. So please do reach us out for all of your comments, your questions, your suggestions via email. That's at INCRadioPodcast.net. And because here in INC Radio Podcast, we're here.
We're
To
here to
hear.
hear.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you so much for seeing us. See you on the
everything.
next episode.
It's
Yo,
gonna win.
bam,
It's
bam,
gonna
bam,
win.
bam, bam.
Malungkot ka ba? O masaya? Tara, kape! Every Saturday at 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Dito lang sa INC Radio Cafe.